The phone lines are on fire across the NFL. It's not just a rumor anymore. Insiders from Cleveland to Miami are confirming that multiple teams are blowing up the Browns' phones, begging, pleading, even dangling premium draft picks in exchange for one player, Shedeur Sanders. But Cleveland's front office, their response is as cold as Lake Erie in December. Hell no. And that one decision has become the story everyone is talking about. See, this isn't just another quarterback controversy. This is bigger than a depth chart debate or a trade rumor. What's happening in Cleveland right now could rewrite the future of their entire franchise and maybe tilt the balance of power across the AFC for years to come. Shedeur Sanders isn't some random backup taking up space on the sideline. This is the same quarterback who dominated college football, threw for over 4,000 yards last year, and turned Colorado from a Pac-12 punchline into a primetime attraction. He's been called a problem solver, a culture changer, and the guy who carries his father's swagger but backs it up with precision passing and football IQ that NFL scouts drooled over. And yet, here he is buried on Cleveland's depth chart, third string, not even dressing on Sundays, sitting behind a 40-year-old Joe Flacco and fellow rookie Dylan Gabriel. If you think that's strange, you're not alone. Browns fans are furious. NFL analysts are baffled. And rival teams, they smell blood in the water. The Cincinnati Bengals, reeling after Joe Burrow's season-ending injury, reportedly made the first call. The Miami Dolphins, watching Tua struggle with turnovers, have been quietly floating offers too. Even the Los Angeles Rams and Indianapolis Colts are rumored to have made inquiries. And Cleveland's front office just keeps slamming the door. But here, where it gets fascinating, the Browns might not be wrong. Because what they have in Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. It's the one thing this franchise has been chasing since it came back to the league in 1999. Hope. Hope that they finally have their future franchise QB. Hope that they don't have to tank for draft position. Hope that, for once, they got it right. And that's why this story is so polarizing. On one hand, you have a young quarterback wasting away on the bench while teams dangle draft picks. On the other, you have a front office saying, "No, we know what we've got and we're not letting it go." The question is, are they geniuses playing chess while the rest of the league plays checkers? Or are they about to watch one of the league's most promising quarterbacks waste crucial development time and become the one that got away? Buckle up, because this saga is just getting started, and what happens next could change everything in Cleveland. Before we dive deeper into the Browns' quarterback dilemma, we need to talk about the man at the center of it all, Shedeur Sanders. Most people know him as the son of NFL Hall of Famer and college football icon Dayan, Coach Prime Sanders. But reducing Shedeur to just Dayan's kid doesn't tell the full story. This is a quarterback who has built his own legacy, step by step, with a combination of talent, leadership, and poise that's turned him into one of the most intriguing young players in football. Shedeur's journey started at Jackson State, where he didn't just play, he transformed the program. When he arrived, Jackson State was a middle-of-the-road FCS school. Within 2 years, he had them winning conference titles and dominating opponents. He threw for over 3,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, racking up touchdowns and rewriting the school's record books. More importantly, he put HBCU football back on the national radar, attracting TV networks, corporate sponsors, and even celebrities to the sideline. But his real coming-out party was the move to Colorado. In 2023, Shedeur followed his father to Boulder, where he stepped into one of the toughest situations in college football, a program that had been an afterthought for over a decade. Colorado had gone 1-11 the year before. Expectations were rock bottom. What did Shedeur do? He lit it up. In his first game against TCU, a team that had just played in the national championship, Shedeur threw for 510 yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. That performance didn't just win the game, it shocked the college football world. Suddenly, Colorado was the story. ESPN couldn't stop talking about them. Social media exploded. Tickets sold out. Throughout the season, Shedeur kept putting up numbers that made NFL scouts take notice. over 4,000 passing yards, 27-plus touchdowns, and a completion percentage north of 70% despite playing behind one of the most porous offensive lines in college football. He was sacked an eye-popping number of times, but here what stood out, he didn't get rattled. He kept coming back, kept delivering strikes, kept giving his team a chance to win. And that's the thing about Shedeur, he's not just a stats guy. Teammates and coaches rave about his leadership, his film study habits, and his calm under pressure. He's been described as an NFL quarterback trapped in a college jersey. That combination, production, poise, and personality, is why so many people believed he should have been a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Instead, he slid all the way to the 5th round, where Cleveland scooped him up. To them, it wasn't just a value pick. It was a potential franchise-changing steal. Now, the question is whether Cleveland will unlock the same version of Shedeur Sanders that turned around Jackson State and Colorado, or whether they'll let one of the most exciting young quarterbacks of this generation sit in the shadows. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are in one of the strangest quarterback situations in the NFL, and Shedeur Sanders is right at the center of it. When the Browns drafted Shedeur in the 5th round, fans saw it as a low-risk, high-upside move. He was never expected to start Week 1, but most figured he'd at least compete for the QB2 job and get developmental reps throughout the season. Instead, Cleveland went in a completely different direction. The Browns shocked everyone by bringing back Joe Flacco, the 40-year-old veteran who briefly became a folk hero last season after leading the team into the playoffs. Not only did Flacco resign, but he immediately reclaimed the starting role. Behind him, the team kept rookie Dylan Gabriel, who came in as an undrafted free agent but impressed coaches with his mobility and quick release. That left Shedeur buried at QB3, and to make matters worse, the Browns didn't even make him active on game days. Through the first month of the season, he hasn't taken a single regular season snap. He's been a healthy scratch, standing on the sideline in street clothes while Flacco and Gabriel run the show. Fans are frustrated. Social media is blowing up with hashtags like Free Shedeur and Let Him Play. Even some analysts have started questioning Cleveland's plan, wondering if keeping him benched is stunting his growth. And then came the trade rumors. According to multiple insiders, teams have started calling Cleveland to inquire about Shedeur's availability, and not just bottom-feeder teams either. The Bengals, Dolphins, and even the Rams have reportedly tested the waters. Each time, the Browns shut the conversation down immediately. This has sparked a huge debate among NFL fans and analysts. On one side, you have those who think the Browns are doing the right thing, letting Shedeur develop quietly, learn the playbook, and avoid being thrown into the fire too soon. On the other side, critics argue that there's no better teacher than live reps, and that the Browns are wasting a year of his rookie contract while rolling with a stopgap veteran. It doesn't help that Flacco has been inconsistent. One week he looks like the wily veteran who can still sling it. The next week, he struggles with turnovers and sacks, leaving fans screaming for a change. Inside the building, things are reportedly tense. Some players have anonymously told reporters they think Shedeur deserves a shot. Others believe he's just not ready yet. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has been tight-lipped, repeating the same line to the media. Shedeur, doing a great job developing. When he's ready, he'll play. But when will that be? And how long will Shedeur be willing to wait? That's the drama brewing in Cleveland right now. A potential franchise quarterback just waiting for his chance, while the clock keeps ticking. If you think the noise around Shedeur Sanders is just fan chatter, think again. NFL front offices are watching the Cleveland situation like hawks, and some of them are ready to pounce. Over the last few weeks, insiders like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter have reported that multiple teams have inquired about Shedeur's availability. And these aren't rebuilding teams just looking for cheap depth. These are legitimate contenders and quarterback-needy franchises who see Sanders as a future starter. The first team linked was the Cincinnati Bengals, whose season was derailed by Joe Burrow's devastating injury. Cincinnati has one of the most talented rosters in football and can't afford to waste a year of their Super Bowl window. They reportedly called Cleveland and offered a mid-round pick to bring Sanders across the state. The Browns said no. Then came the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa has had a rocky start to the season with turnover issues, and Miami is desperate to keep pace with the Bills in the AFC East. League sources say they've quietly floated a package involving a third-round pick and conditional future pick if Sanders hits certain playing time incentives. Once again, Cleveland declined. Even the Indianapolis Colts have been rumored to be sniffing around. With Anthony Richardson struggling with injuries, Indy could use a steady, high-IQ passer to keep their playoff hopes alive. The Rams are another sleeper team. Sean McVay reportedly loves Sanders' film and thinks he could be a perfect fit in their system as Matthew Stafford's eventual successor. The interest makes sense. Rookie quarterbacks with Shedeur's pedigree almost never sit this long. He's cheap, under contract for multiple years, and has starter upside. For a team on the brink, he could be the missing piece that keeps their season alive. But here's the twist. The Browns aren't just saying no out of pride. There's a growing belief that Cleveland sees Sanders as their long-term plan, the guy who eventually takes over when Flacco hangs it up. Which means every offer they turn down is less about being stubborn and more about protecting what they see as their franchise quarterback of the future. Still, the offers are only getting bigger. With the trade deadline approaching, expect desperate teams to get aggressive. Don't be surprised if a team throws in a second-round pick or even a player-for-player swap to sweeten the deal. This puts Cleveland in a fascinating position. Do they cash in now and get valuable draft capital, or do they hold firm, keep Sanders, and risk alienating a quarterback who might want to play sooner rather than later? Either way, the clock is ticking. Every week Shedeur stays on the bench, the pressure builds from the fans, from the media, and now from the rest of the league. The Browns can only hold the line for so long before something gives. The Shedeur Sanders dilemma is a classic NFL case study in risk versus reward. And right now, the Cleveland Browns are walking a tightrope. On one hand, holding on to Shedeur could be the most valuable decision they make this decade. Sanders represents something Cleveland has been chasing for over 20 years, a homegrown, long-term solution at quarterback. He's young, cheap on a rookie contract, and has the skill set to be a top 10 quarterback in the league. By keeping him, the Browns have the luxury of developing him slowly under veteran Joe Flacco while avoiding the high pressure, throw him to the wolves, scenario that ruins so many young quarterbacks. If he pans out, they won't just have a good quarterback. They'll have one of the most valuable assets in football, a star QB on a rookie deal, which gives them cap flexibility to build a contender around him. But here's the risk: time. Shedeur is currently buried on the depth chart. Every game he sits inactive increases the possibility of frustration setting in, not just for him, but for fans, media, and even his teammates. Quarterbacks with his pedigree and personality don't like to wait forever. If Cleveland keeps him sidelined too long, there's a danger he could request a trade down the road or simply lose faith in the organization's plan. By holding him, the Browns are gambling that Flacco stays healthy, Gabriel develops, and the locker room doesn't fracture over who the future belongs to. Trading Shedeur, on the other hand, comes with its own set of rewards, starting with draft capital. The rumored offers from teams like the Dolphins and Bengals reportedly involve premium picks. Moving Sanders could net Cleveland a second-rounder or more, giving them ammunition to build around whichever quarterback they draft or acquire in the future. It would also remove the quarterback controversy brewing beneath the surface, eliminate potential locker room tension, and send a message that the Browns are all in on their current starters. The risk: regret. If Sanders turns into a star elsewhere, imagine him lighting it up in Cincinnati or Miami. The Browns would go down in history as the franchise that let a franchise QB slip away. Fans still haven't forgiven the team for passing on Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes years ago. Trading Shedeur could be the mistake that haunts the organization for a decade. So which path is smarter? Holding on to him is a bet on patience and internal development. Trading him is a bet on maximizing present value while avoiding drama. Both roads have landmines, but one thing is clear. Whichever decision Cleveland makes will define their franchise for years to come. The 2026 quarterback class is supposed to be the next great wave of NFL signal callers, but so far, it's been more hype than production. And that matters a lot for the Cleveland Browns, because every decision they make about Shedeur Sanders is connected to this upcoming draft class. Let's start with the headliner, Arch Manning. The nephew of Peyton and Eli, the Manning name alone has made him the most talked-about prospect in college football. But his actual play through the first few weeks of the season has been shaky. Completing just 11 of 25 passes for 114 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception is exactly franchise quarterback material. He's still young, still developing, but scouts are starting to whisper that he might not be the generational prospect everyone assumed. Then there's Drew Aller, who entered the season as another top QB prospect. His stat line, 16 of 29 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, has been decent but unspectacular. Teams want to see him dominate, not just manage games. Oregon's Dante Moore has shown flashes, but he's been inconsistent, and Leonard Sellers' 6 of 7 day for 94 yards was good but marred by an interception. These are the numbers that make front offices nervous, especially when they're comparing them to a player like Shedeur Sanders, who threw for over 4,000 yards last season at Colorado with elite efficiency. Why does this matter for Cleveland? Because they have 2 first-round picks in 2026. That means they could theoretically package those picks to trade up and grab one of these quarterbacks. But if the class is underwhelming, that might not be the smart play. Drafting a quarterback high is always a gamble. For every Joe Burrow or C.J. Stroud, there's a Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, highly drafted players who didn't pan out. Keeping Shedeur gives Cleveland a known commodity. Someone who has already proven he can produce against top-tier college competition. But if the Browns are convinced that one of these 2026 prospects can be a generational talent, they might feel pressure to strike while they have the draft capital. After all, it's rare to have 2 first-rounders in the same year, and that kind of ammo can let you move up as high as you need to go. The 2026 QB class matters because it's shaping the leverage around Shedeur. If the class keeps underperforming, Shedeur's trade value will only rise, making him even harder for Cleveland to part with. If a couple of prospects break out and look like surefire franchise QBs, the Browns could be tempted to sell high on Shedeur, draft their guy, and reset the rookie clock. Either way, what happens on Saturdays this fall is directly influencing what Cleveland does on Sundays. And that's why the 2026 QB class is one of the most important storylines in the NFL right now. When it comes to Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, the future can go in 2 completely different directions, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Let's break down what it looks like if everything goes right versus if everything falls apart. If things go well. In the best-case scenario, Cleveland's patience pays off. Joe Flacco holds down the fort, keeps the team competitive, and gives Shedeur a full year to learn the system without being thrown into the fire. By late in the season, maybe even after the Browns are eliminated from playoff contention, Sanders gets his first real start. He impresses, showing poise, accuracy, and the ability to lead an NFL offense. Suddenly, the fan base has hope. Going into the 2026 season, Shedeur is the clear QB1. Cleveland uses its 2 first-round picks not on a quarterback, but to bolster the offensive line and add playmakers, giving Sanders a strong supporting cast. With a year of experience under his belt and a roster built to win now, he leads the Browns to their first legitimate playoff run since 2020. If this happens, Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski look like geniuses for holding on to Sanders, ignoring trade offers, and trusting their development plan. It's the kind of payoff that could reset the entire franchise's trajectory for a decade. If things go poorly, the flip side is much darker. Joe Flacco either struggles or gets hurt, Dylan Gabriel plays inconsistently, and the Browns refuse to play Shedeur, even as the season spirals. This creates frustration not just among fans, but inside the locker room. Players begin to question why the most talented QB on the roster is sitting inactive every Sunday. Trade rumors intensify. Sanders' camp starts leaking their frustration to the media, and the Browns find themselves in a PR nightmare. Then comes the draft. Cleveland uses its first-round picks to draft a quarterback from the 2026 class, signaling that Shedeur is not their long-term plan. This not only tanks his trade value, but also risks losing him mentally. A young QB who feels overlooked and disrespected may never fully buy back into the organization. Meanwhile, the teams that were calling all year, Miami, Cincinnati, LA, Indy, end up finding their quarterbacks elsewhere, leaving Cleveland with no suitors and a frustrated player holding a clipboard. In this scenario, the Browns' front office is accused of mishandling a rare talent. Fans turn on Stefanski, and what could have been a franchise-changing moment becomes another chapter in Cleveland's long history of quarterback heartbreak. If you zoom out and look at the Browns' decisions over the past year, a very clear picture starts to form, and it says a lot about how this franchise views Shedeur Sanders and their long-term quarterback situation. First, look at the draft. Cleveland grabbed Shedeur in the 5th round, 144th overall, a steal given his production at Colorado. General manager Andrew Berry admitted afterward that they didn't expect Sanders to be available that late and saw him as mispriced relative to the board. Translation: they think they got first or second-round talent for pennies on the dollar. Teams don't luck into that kind of value and then just give it away. Next, consider how they've handled him since. They've kept him buried on the depth chart, sure, but they've also been deliberate about surrounding him with veteran leadership. Joe Flacco, a Super Bowl winner, is still in the building to mentor him. Kevin Stefanski has emphasized that Shedeur is developing well and is part of their long-term plans. The Browns aren't rushing him because they don't need to, and that in itself is a strategy. Then look at the trade calls. Reports say the Bengals, Dolphins, Rams, and Colts have all made serious offers, including picks as high as the 2nd round. The Browns' response? A simple, repeated no. Not even a "we'll think about it." That suggests this isn't just about depth or competition, it's about the future. Cleveland clearly believes Shedeur is worth more than any draft pick right now. And considering that a 2nd rounder is considered premium capital in the NFL, that's saying a lot. Another subtle clue is how the Browns are handling the 2026 draft class. With 2 first-round picks next year, they could easily position themselves to grab a quarterback. Yet every signal coming out of Berea suggests they aren't desperate. They're doing their due diligence on prospects like Arch Manning and Drew Aller, but insiders report that their scouting trips are more about information gathering than urgent shopping. In other words, they don't feel forced to find a QB because they already have one they like. Even their public messaging has been calculated. Andrew Berry called their QB room an opportunity, not a problem. Stefanski has defended the decision to keep Sanders inactive, saying it's part of the process. That's not a front office in panic mode. That's a front office playing chess while everyone else plays checkers. Put all of this together, and Cleveland's strategy looks clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a developmental project. He's a long-term play. The Browns are betting that their patience and investment will pay off, and they're willing to ride out the noise, the media criticism, and the trade rumors to see it through. The NFL trade deadline is always dramatic, but this year's could be explosive thanks to the Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland. Every GM in the league knows the Browns have a potential franchise quarterback sitting 3rd on their depth chart, and as injuries pile up and teams start separating into contenders and pretenders, the phone calls will only get louder. The first thing to watch is the quarterback landscape across the league. Teams like the Bengals, Dolphins, Rams, and Colts have already been linked to Sanders, and their situations could intensify as the season progresses. If Joe Burrow's recovery takes longer than expected, Cincinnati might be forced to make a bold move to stay competitive in the AFC North. If Tua Tagovailoa continues to struggle with turnovers in Miami, fans and ownership could pressure the front office to find a replacement before the playoff window closes. For the Rams, the question is whether Matthew Stafford's body can hold up through a full season. If not, Shedeur would be the perfect bridge to the future. Second, pay attention to the Browns' record. If Cleveland is in the playoff hunt, their incentive to hold onto Sanders grows. He becomes an insurance policy in case Joe Flacco gets hurt late in the season. But if the Browns stumble and find themselves out of contention by late October, the front office might be more open to moving Sanders for the right package, especially if they think they can reset with a 2026 first-round quarterback. The offers themselves will also be fascinating to watch. According to reports, teams have already floated second- and third-round picks for Sanders. If those offers turn into first-rounders as desperation rises, Cleveland's resolve will truly be tested. A single first-round pick would be tempting, but two, or a first-rounder plus a player, that might be too much for even the most patient GM to turn down. Another storyline to monitor is Sanders' own camp. So far, Shedeur has been patient and professional, quietly putting in the work and avoiding drama. But if he continues to sit inactive every week, it wouldn't be surprising if his representatives start applying pressure, either publicly or behind the scenes, to get him playing time or to push for a move. Finally, keep an eye on how other QB-needy teams approach the draft. If the 2026 class continues to underwhelm, Shedeur's value will skyrocket heading into November. He may be the only young, NFL-ready quarterback available for trade, which could create a bidding war. The trade deadline isn't just another date on the calendar this season. It's a potential pivot point for the entire Browns franchise. Will they double down on their belief in Sanders, or will they cash in their lottery ticket and let someone else build around him? The Shedeur Sanders saga isn't just another quarterback controversy. It's a storyline that could reshape the Cleveland Browns and maybe even the entire AFC. What's at stake here goes far beyond one player's career. This is about identity, patience, and whether a franchise that's been chasing stability for decades finally has the courage to stay the course. Cleveland has been through it all: the drive, the fumble, the decision, the endless carousel of quarterbacks that has haunted the franchise since 1999. Browns fans have been conditioned to expect heartbreak, to believe that even when they find a good thing, it won't last. Shedeur Sanders represents the opposite of that cycle. He represents hope, a potential fresh start that doesn't require tearing the roster down or praying for a miracle in the draft. If the Browns are right about him, this could be the most important decision they've made in decades. Keeping him means believing in their scouting department, their development program, and their long-term vision. It means enduring criticism from fans and analysts who want to see him play right now or want to flip him for picks. It means ignoring the noise and focusing on the future. But if they're wrong, if Shedeur never develops into the franchise quarterback they hope for, or worse, if he gets traded and becomes a star elsewhere, this could go down as another chapter in Cleveland's book of heartbreak. Fans still talk about passing on Mahomes, missing on Deshaun Watson's long-term availability, and cycling through quarterbacks year after year. The Browns cannot afford another "what if" at the most important position in football. That's why this story has captivated the league. It's not just about whether Shedeur will eventually start. It's about whether the Browns can finally escape their own history. Every trade rumor, every scout report on the 2026 class, every snap that Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel takes feels like a piece of a much larger puzzle. And that's where you, the audience, come in. What do you think Cleveland should do? Should they hold their ground and bet that Shedeur Sanders will eventually become the star they've been waiting for? Should they trade him now while his value is high and stockpile picks to build for the future? Or should they find a way to get him on the field sooner rather than later to truly see what they have? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from Browns fans, rivals, and neutral observers. This isn't just about Cleveland. This is about the future of a franchise, the reputation of a front office, and maybe the next great quarterback in the NFL. Because in this league, one decision can define a decade, and for the Browns, that decision is coming sooner than anyone thinks.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.